Hello, everyone. Chad Frantzen here. Welcome to the Kingdom Finance Show. On today's program, I want to talk about something that's in the news quite a lot today. And we're recording this particular podcast at the end of October, 1st of November, 2024. So in the United States, we're heading into a major presidential election. A lot of offices up for election besides the presidency at the federal, state, and local level. And what I wanted to do was spend some time talking about voting and why voting is all about having a voice. And before I get started, I want to thank you for being a part of the Kingdom Finance Show. I'm your host, Chad Frantzen. Whether you've listened from the beginning or you've just joined us, thank you for being here. Really, my goal is to come alongside you as a trusted advisor to help give you wisdom and insight into managing your finances, your businesses, and your thinking as it is in alignment with your values. So let's get started. Please like and subscribe to the show. And today's topic, voting is having a voice. Now, those of us that live in the United States have the great privilege to live in a free country where we can do any kind of work we want. We can go to any type of school that we want to go to. We can worship at any type of church that we so desire. And we have a lot of first world freedoms, being, the greatest country in the world that many other countries do not have. Now, that being said, this topic of voting, oftentimes we take it for granted. We don't instill it in our way of life. We don't instill it as a teaching to our children or to our students or our coworkers or people in our church, even as pastors and many friends that I have that are pastors. Sometimes they don't encourage people to get out and vote. And really, we are in the third Great Awakening. And so when we think about the history of the U.S., we've had a couple of major Great Awakenings, revivals from that. Much of the founding of the U.S. came out of persecution, religious persecution, the inability to worship and have freedom on that. So there's a growing understanding, and it's needed in this time, that voting is about having a voice. It's also about expressing through the democratic system your rights, your beliefs, and being okay to disagree with other people, and also being open to having conversations about why you should vote a certain way. Now, I'm a big proponent that we need to be voting, in this election at the federal, state, and local level, and we need to be voting our values. We need to be voting for candidates who have biblical principles that are in alignment with the teachings of the Bible, that are not anti-Christian. And a lot of the politicians and candidates at all different levels certainly have some very liberal ideology and some very terse comments towards those that have Christian values. So, for me, my position, and this is not the point of the show today, but just to go ahead and put it out there, is I'm going to be voting my values. I'm going to be voting Christian values across the board, from the White House all the way down to my local elected judges and school board people. I want people in office who support Christian values, who support sanctity of life, and who are believe that preserving America is important, including jobs, including keeping the border safe, and including even how we deal with other countries such as Russia and China, and particularly how we come alongside Israel. So that being said, let's talk about having a voice for voting. Now, if you think about in the Bible, really at the beginning of creation, right, we see when the serpent entered the picture in Genesis 3, the man and the woman and sin enters and the serpent comes. It talks about that, when the serpent lies to Eve and says, surely you will not die, But he says, God knows that your eyes will be open, and you will, as soon as you eat this apple, you will be like God, and you'll know both good and evil. And the woman was convinced, as the story goes, we know, right? And she saw the tree, it was beautiful, and she wanted the wisdom of the apple from that tree, and she took some of that fruit and ate it. And then she turned and gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it too. And so I think one of the key takeaways for this is we're talking about voting, and I'm going to connect the dots here to finance and business. But I want to set the stage for this with this verse of oftentimes when we are in situations as voters, as parents, as business owners, employees, entrepreneurs, pastors, investors, we are standing at the crossroads in the middle of an event, a moment that is happening, and we do nothing. Just like Adam, we stand there, we hear what's being said, right? There's no doubt Adam heard what the serpent was saying, and we do nothing. We do nothing. And so abdicating our authority that God has given us, having this spirit of passivity, this has been passed on, right? This is part of what we deal with in our flesh. So when we think about whether it's voting for office or getting involved in our church or starting a company or going to work for a new organization or picking an investment, right? It's all the same thing of our mindset has to be renewed, and we have to be continually asking for wisdom on, okay, how do we respond? How do we engage? At times, there's going to be positive things, and at other times, it's going to be negative things where it's going to be the voice of the enemy. It's going to be distractions to get us off our unique ability, what God has called us to do in business and finance. And so the worst thing we can do is to do what Adam did. And this is something we have to renew our minds with this knowledge every day of we can't just sit there and lie passive. And so certainly I'm speaking in the context of a major presidential election in the United States. I want to encourage everyone, if you haven't already, and you're watching this before the election, that you need to go vote. And you need to vote using Christian principles. You need to vote according to what the Word of God says. What the Word of God says about that God made them man and woman, male and female. That God values life. He does not want any life lost. We need to be voting based on the tenets of the Bible. But I want to take this a little deeper from that. So let's talk about how voting is expressing our voice. Now, going to the ballot box, extremely important. We need to get out and vote. We need to be voting biblical values. We need to be voting conservative values, conservative government, and not crazy Marxist ideology. I could spend the whole show on that. I'm not. I think most people know where I'm coming from with that perspective. But voting is your voice. And so we talked about it at the election level, right? And oftentimes we miss the major impact that even locally at our school boards and our sheriff and our county commissioners, those are in our local communities where we are all over the United States. Those are very important elected officials. So we need to be involved, not just voting at the presidency and the Senate and the House level at federal, but we need to be familiar with what's going on in our communities. There is a great battle going on in the educational system in the schools. If you're not in a private Christian school, the public schools, the public charter programs, even the homeschool collaboratives are being attacked by many of the liberal states on transgenderism and what types of curriculum they have to use and things like that. So the more we can be voting for our school board members, for those men and women that have conservative Christian values, we're in the game. We need to be in the game. Adam was not in the game, okay? And so that's something that we have to fight every day. But I want to take it past just voting for elected officials, right? Let's talk about how we vote or how we have a voice, right? So when I say vote, you say voice, right? They both start with the letter V. So voting creates a voice. So let's talk about how voting creates a voice with your money. Now, this doesn't matter. This concept is relevant whether you are a student, a retiree, a serial multi-million-dollar entrepreneur, or whether you are a local pastor or missionary. These concepts apply. Money, the currency that we use in the world. With our money, how are we having a voice in voting with our money? Well, let's talk about where we go shopping. Let's talk about what we spend our money on. Let's look at the brand of clothing that we're wearing. There's billions of dollars spent every year on branding, commercials, advertising, catchy jingles and slogans. If I hear the Burger King commercial, the BK, have it your way one more time, it's going to drive me crazy. I never go to Burger King, but that is one of the catchiest jingle commercials you'll ever see if you're watching a football or baseball game and it comes on. So billions of dollars are being spent every year on this. So the brands, the logos, we can look at something like Nike. Nike is a multi-billion-dollar company, but they have some very suspect policies, some very liberal agendas at the company. And there's even been, talks of like how the labor laws that they use in third world countries to make these shoes and potentially unfair child labor laws. So do I want to wear a pair of Nikes? I used to love Air Jordans when they came out, but do I really want to be having the Nike swoosh on my hat or my polo shirt? I'm a walking billboard for those logos. So let's think about voting as a voice, where we shop, what we spend our money on, what brand of clothes and shoes are we wearing, right? We only have one life to live. So if we're going to be out there, how are we going to be viewed differently with how we spend our money? And maybe we say, hey, I'm not going to shop and spend my money at Starbucks and Target. Maybe I'm not going to bank at Wells Fargo and Bank of America. Maybe I'm not going to wear Nike and some of those things. So the point here is we're voting with when our money goes out into the economy. 2/3 of the U.S. economy is consumer spending, okay? What you and I spend, it's called velocity of money. It goes through the economy. Now, we can take that even further with how we invest our money. If we're investing in a 401k or a retirement plan, investing in a 529 for college, you name it, anything, whatever we're investing in, whether it's public stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, gold and silver, like where are we investing? And even more, have we thought about why we shop and where we do? And have we thought about why we invest where we do? I think most of us don't pay that much attention. I'm going to go to the closest coffee shop. I'm going to buy the best looking pair of shoes. I'm going to go to the stores, the big box stores that are closest and most convenient to me. Convenience is not conviction. And so when we think about our money and the resources God has given us, and if we're thinking of this from a conservative value standpoint, we need to be voting our voice with conviction, not with convenience. And most often what we do is we default to comfort, convenience, and control. Much like Adam, we prefer things to be comfortable and convenient, and we just want to be in control, right? We don't want to miss anything. We got the FOMO, the fear of missing out, right? But that's not what God has called us to. And today, in the day of the third great awakening, it's time for men and women, boys and girls, people of all ethnicities to step up, to speak out, and to seek truth. And we know that truth is in Jesus. Now let's talk about our money. Now we talked about spending it and investing it. Now one of the things that I've been teaching on lately is the concept of when you invest your money. Let's say it's a 401k or retirement account, right? And let's say you invest it into an ETF or a mutual fund. You put $1,000, $100,000, $1 million, whatever, into those funds, index funds, as they're often referred to. There's a manager that takes your money and then invest in all these different public companies, right? So what the manager also does is they own the shares of General Motors, Coca-Cola, Google, Tesla, whomever, right? And they will receive what's called the proxy notice. Now, the proxy notice is the voting rights of the shareholder. So what if I told you this? What if we were talking about the presidential election and you were, let's say, hypothetically, you are really decided that you're going to vote pro-Christian conservative values and you're going to vote for Donald Trump. And you felt like that was your only option. I would probably agree with you. And you were preparing to go get your ballot. But then you learned that another management company had actually received all the ballots for everyone in your zip code. And this manager had all your ballots, everyone on your street, neighborhood, everyone. This manager had all the ballots for the presidential election. And they sent you a notice and they said, hey, Chris, John, Sally, hey, don't worry about it. We've got your ballot. We're going to vote it for you. Okay. Because we know you put your trust in us. You put your money in us to manage it. So we're going to take care of that. That would be absolutely ludicrous, right? That is not a free market, right? That is not open and fair elections. So that is what happens when you put investment dollars. Now, whether you're investing individually or through your company or through your church, when you put those dollars into a index fund, a mutual fund, and there's a manager, right? The manager actually is going to vote your proxies with all these public companies. So when they have board resolutions and proposals on any number of wide-ranging things, right? There's a value or virtue component to a lot of those things that come up for a vote. And you have given up your vote. You've abdicated just like Adam. And you said, okay, Mr. and Miss Manager, you vote my shares, which are my dollars, however you see fit. And so the largest asset managers in the world, Vanguard, BlackRock, they are not conservative values focused. They are certainly not biblically responsible, but even from a just like common, do what's, the golden rule just for the good of human flourishing, right? What I think almost all Americans and people want, that's not how they're voting. And so we have to take that back. So when you think about your vote is a voice, we need to think about it at all these different levels. And that's why I'm wanting to come to you this week in light of the election of let's really think through. Let's get wisdom. Let's get really clear on when we invest, that we invest in alignment with our values, and we also are voting those shares that you own in public companies or private companies for that matter with your values. We're fortunate enough, we've come up with some third-party strategic partners at our company, Wealthbuilders Investments, where we are actually going in and voting proxies and doing advocacy with public and private companies on behalf of our clients to promote conservative values, human flourishing, the common good in a lot of these boardrooms at the public and private level. I want to encourage you, if you're not doing that, really consider how you can add that into your financial investing plan. Whether you're a nonprofit or a huge for-profit corporation, or if you're just starting out, please, I'll give you information at the end of the show, how to reach out to us, and we can help you get you some resources for that. Let's keep going down this a little more. Again, I'm talking about voting in your voice. Let's talk about the next level with your money is what we give to. So we talk about tithing and being charitably inclined, right? Some are very philanthropic with private foundations or donor advised funds. There's some amazing things you can do with good tax benefits for people to really align your giving with your values. Well, this is a pretty clear one that you're voting. You have a major voice. If you want to take your required distribution from your IRA and you want to give that tax-free to a 501c3 charity of your choice, well, that's a really meaningful strategy to consider implementing if it's age appropriate for you. And now you're voting your voice because you're directing dollars to a church or a nonprofit that fits right with your heart and with your values. Well, what if you sold a business? We've worked with clients through the years who have built, acquired, grown companies, and then they've sold those companies. Well, what would be your exit strategy? What would be your financial plan if you were selling a business and you had some significant tax implications, but you also wanted to think through purpose? You wanted to think through values and purpose of, well, why did I build the business in the first place? What do I want to do with this money? Am I leaving it? Am I selling it to a third party? Am I leaving it behind to some leaders that I've raised up around me to replace me? How am I going to minimize taxes on this? How am I going to be as charitable, as philanthropic, as giving as I want to be to support my faith, to support my values, my community, things I believe in, and for my family and children? How am I going to educate my kids about this as well? How can I use growing and selling a business and the thought process that goes into how you manage money after the sale of a business to my kids as the most impactful learning opportunity? These are really powerful questions to be asking. And this is something that we do on a week-to-week basis with families that we're working with in our programs. Some of you are business owners. Some of you have opened multiple businesses, single to serial entrepreneurs. And when we think about business ownership and we think about how are we expressing our values through our businesses, well, what do we stand for? And what is our culture? And have we defined our culture and what our value set is? I'm a Christian business owner, but I work with vendors and clients who are not of the Christian faith, and I enjoy working with them. And so what better way for them to get to know more about my faith and my belief in the Bible than to be around me or be around some of my employees and to hopefully get a good impression for what the Bible stands for and what life there is in Jesus. So as a business owner, like what are we giving back to? How are we supporting our community? How are we training up our employees and our leaders? How are we raising up the next generation of business owners to teach them how to incorporate their values into the KPIs, right, of running a business? It's not just balance sheets and profit and loss statements. It's a lot more measurables that connect back to, well, what's the purpose of what I'm doing? There's been several books written and several studies that I've been following the last couple of years of very successful businessmen and women who have come to a certain point in their life where they've achieved meaningful financial gain, business gain, accolades in their field of work. And it moved the question from, how do I become successful? The question then became, okay, how does this become significant for what I believe in and what's important to me? You see, success is just part of the path that we're on in the journey. God has equipped us with talents and abilities to steward and to serve people. Scripture talks a lot about the different spiritual gifts. And that's part of what, as business owners and investors, we need to be real mindful. Well, what's our strategy? What's our value set for where we are today in how we vote in an election to how we invest in our 401k? How does that align with my purpose? And how does that align to the values of my faith and my family and what is most important to me? Now, finally, for some of you who are not business owners, you are great team members of organizations, whether it's a large company, small company, or a church or a ministry, and you're amazing at what you do. Your skill set makes the company or the church function in a way that it would not be as viable and as productive if you were not there. Well, what is the organization you're working for? What do they stand for? How do the leaders lead? What's the product or service that they offer? And is it good? And I don't mean good in the sense of, okay, well, it's a great product and people like it, but is it good? Is it positive? Does it help people in a meaningful way in life? Is your time and your talent, your treasures, is it best utilized working for that company or organization? We really need to challenge ourselves to seek wisdom on the time we're given in business and in relationships and with money and with voting in these elections. It's all an opportunity to express the value set that we carry in our heart. And so I wanted to share that today because I think in light of the election, I think there's a lot going on in our hearts of like, okay, well, what's really important and what's going to happen after the election? And some of that is beyond our control, but what is in our control is we can be going out daily, weekly, and instead of being passive and sitting back like Adam did, we're voting every single day with how we run our companies, how we run our families, how we invest our money in our businesses and in our personal investing accounts. Now, we don't want to be naive about the world we live in. There's a lot of bad things happening, but there's a lot of good things. There's a lot of light happening out in the seven mountains of culture. There's a lot of positive things happening in the schools and in government and in business. There's a lot of bad things. There's a lot of things very concerning. And we're like, hey, I wish Jesus would come back. But our opportunity is now, and it's one that does not involve being passive. It doesn't involve being scared or fearful. It involves being proactive. It involves linking together with people around you in your network, in your community, in your family to say, hey, you know what? We're called to go and to teach and disciple. And how we disciple right where you are is through voting and expressing your voice, which I believe is through conservative Christian faith values. Now, I want to end with this. There's the great passage that Jesus shares about the Great Commission. Jesus told the disciples that he had given all authority in heaven and on earth. And he said, go make disciples of all the nations. He goes on to tell them to teach the new disciples to obey all the commands that have been given. So there's some action verbs in this. So I'll leave you with this, that we have been given authority through Jesus as believers and followers, disciples of Jesus. But the call is an action verb. It's to go and make disciples. And we're teaching, right? So teaching, making disciples, going. This is a very active part. This is a journey. We're walking, we're traveling, we're imparting, we're instructing, we're instilling, we're delivering. It doesn't pay for us to live small, right? We don't need to cower back and be afraid of like, well, what if I vote this away with my money? Or what if I vote this away in an election? Or what if I get involved with my school board in this way? Or what if I create this policy at my company? Would my employees leave? Or would I attract the right kind of people? If I actually started creating a kingdom culture that was in alignment with my beliefs, maybe my company would attract more customers, more market share, even better team members and managers. And that's really my heart for us today as I wrap up this week's episode is voting is our voice. And how we get our voice out there is voting. Not only in our federal and local elections by voting Christian principles and values, but also through our money and how we spend, how we invest, how we talk about our resources with our family and our loved ones, how we run our companies and our organizations. How do we lead well is always an expression of what's most important to us, and also our voice is being expressed in that. Hey, I hope this has been helpful. Again, I wanted to share this in light of the presidential election. I would encourage you to vote and vote for biblical values. I think it's pretty straightforward that at the presidential level, if you're voting Christian biblical values, Donald Trump's the only option that is in line with really what the Bible talks about with Christian conservative values and biblical marriage and protecting children and protecting unborn lives and just creating a country where we can thrive and have the freedom of religion and that our country was founded on. So hey, no matter where you are, again, we don't need these things to be divisive. We need to come together and we need to be for each other. We want to be for the kingdom of God. We want to go out and love on people and make disciples with the gifts and the talents and the resources that God has given us. So with that, I'm going to sign off. I want to encourage you, keep making your voice known with how you vote your conservative values in your money, in your businesses, and at the ballot box. If you want to learn more about how to really put this together, when we're talking about voting with our money and that sort of thing, I want you to reach out to us, wealthbuilders.net/invest. That's wealthbuilders.net/invest. We'll be happy to set up a free phone consultation. We can tell you more about the services we offer. You get a free download, and we'll give you some free resources on that. But again, if your heart's really stirred of, hey, I need to implement some of these things that Chad's referring to in my business, in my investment, retirement, and college savings strategies, we would be delighted to come alongside you, try to show you how you can do it, and for where it's appropriate. And we're taking on clients, we can come alongside and assist you with that. Hey, thanks for being a part of the Kingdom Finance Show. I'm Chad Frantzen. Please like and subscribe to this show, and we will see you next time. God bless.
Thank you so much for joining me today on the Kingdom Finance Show. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps to get the word out. For more resources on becoming a Kingdom investor and to connect with us directly, visit our website at wealthbuilders.net. That's wealthbuilders.net. We'll see you next time on the Kingdom Finance Show. The content provided is for educational purposes only. We encourage you to seek personalized investment advice from your financial professional. For all tax and legal advice, please consult your CPA or attorney. Investment advisory services are offered through Authentic Counsel, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cabin Securities, a registered broker-dealer. The content of this podcast does not constitute an offer of securities. Offerings can only be made through an offering memorandum, and you should carefully examine risk factors and other information contained in the memorandum.